Listen, I don't have to be here, but when anybody tells me that they're going to buy me a steak at Shula's Steakhouse and that I get to order the wine, I'm here. Forget about it. I have a certain, I do have a big belief, and particularly this is really, I'm sorry, but this is really, what I'm going to talk about today is for you young guys and girls here, and because I have a belief that if at least I touch one or two of you today, I kind of have done my job, right? And that really is, I consider that an obligation. So I do encourage you to ask any questions. Don't be shy. If you're shy, you're not going to be an entrepreneur. I promise you that. So that's lesson number one. So don't be shy. Just think about, as I talk, think about, I'd really like to know this. Go ahead. I'm going to hopefully, we have plenty of time for you to be able to ask that. And typically, I do this a lot. And the way I start out is, can you really train to be an entrepreneur? What do you think? Is there a curriculum? Is there a training that you can do to be an entrepreneur? You want to get up one day and say, I'm going to be an engineer. You go to engineering school, right? You want to be an accountant. You want to be a lawyer. How do you become an entrepreneur? It's this kind of a abstract concept that everybody wants to grab. Everybody wants to be there. And everybody's always asking, how do you actually get there? And that's gone up. So today, and I've done this, is I've thought a lot through how, in my life, what are the things that have helped me, right, be an entrepreneur. And a lot of it is downfalls and pitfalls, etc. But so I kind of summarized it, and I always call it my 7 keys to being an entrepreneur, right? And that's how I frame it. Now, I have a very disappointing news for you. There are no surprises here. There really aren't. I have no secret formula. It's just I get a real kick when people say, what is the secret? What is the secret to losing weight? Eat less, exercise more. Period. Right? Now, in the meantime, there are hundreds of billions of dollars of people telling you how to lose weight. There are no secrets in this time that I'm going to spend with you, talking and sharing some of the stories of my life. So number 1, there are no secrets. Number 2, it's also a way of life. When I speak about some of the things that have helped me in my life, it's a way of life. You cannot just take a concept and a principle that I'm going to talk to you about and say, I'm going to apply it here, today, in this lunch, in this dinner, with this given person. It's a way of life. You decide that this is really what you want to do. You have this visceral desire to succeed. And that's really how it all starts. If you don't have that visceral desire to succeed, it's going to be very difficult for you to get it, right? So if you start with that, and you think about no secrets and a way of life, I'll start out with my basic principles. Right? So number 1 is keep a positive attitude. In life, there's a lot of things you cannot change. Things are going to happen that are bad. That's the yin and the yang of life. Monsignor Casale knows that very well. His counseled many, many people in times of very, very deep trouble. How do you keep a positive attitude? This is your choice. It is your choice to be positive. Now, who do you actually prefer to be with? A positive person or a negative person? Think about it in the context of yourself and think about it in the context of your immediate friends. There are friends that always radiate a certain amount of energy. And that's the friends you want to go to because they actually uplift you. This is a conscientious effort that they're doing themselves. They may not tell you about it, but I'm telling you and I'm convinced through life that you can discipline yourself to have a positive attitude. You can't change that your boyfriend or your girlfriend left you. You can't change that you got sick. You can't change that a car hit you in the back. You can't change that you got fired from the job when it wasn't your fault. There's bad things going to happen. They're going to happen. You can't change that. The only one thing that you can change is how do you react to them. What is a positive attitude that you take? It helps a lot to have a positive attitude when you have faith, right? When you have faith that what is happening to you in your life at that moment needs to happen. A very difficult concept. That you actually, something bad is happening to you, and for some reason or other, it needed to happen the moment that it did. For those of you who are older around the room, I can tell you each one has the same stories. There's not one single time in my life that something really, really bad happened that didn't turn out to be for the better. Not one time. I'm telling you, and some of these times have been so dark that actually you say, how do you actually get out of this? Oh my God, why me? What is this happening to me right at this particular moment? And I'll tell you, as life goes by, it really and truly has turned out to be for the better. So I have learned to discipline myself to be positive and have the positive attitude no matter what the situation is. When I was really riding high, and I was really riding high in the late 80s, and and oh my God, I owned the world. All of a sudden, I found myself real estate crisis, SNL bankruptcies. I found myself in the Middle East. I found myself. I've been lonely. I've never been in a situation where I really experienced solitude, right? And I found myself with a smoke in Kuwait. And bodies were still there, and I found myself working 18 hours a day, away from my 2 kids, my wife, away from Miami, missing a beer, missing going to the movies, just missing the things that we all take for granted. And I just kept day in and day out. I said, why did this? Why am I here now? What the hell am I doing in Kuwait? And in the middle of all nowhere, Saudi Arabia, afterwards, etc., etc. Let me tell you what happened. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I found myself in the desert. I found myself with no family, no kids, no friends, no beer, no movie, nothing working. And I just all of a sudden had the time to look inside. And that is probably one of the most satisfying periods of my life. I don't want to do it again, but basically, it actually helped me tremendously. And this is so forth and so on. The positive attitude, and I spend a lot of time in positive attitude because it's really the one most important principle of it, right? And if you think about the optimist friend of yours, I always love the story of the twin brothers. One was 8 years. I don't know, maybe you've heard it, but one was 8 years. They're both 80 years old, and one everything couldn't go wrong. Everything is positive and all full of energy. And the other kid, he was always, oh my God, worried and something bad is going to happen, etc. So the father decided on a Christmas that he was actually going to teach him a lesson. So the one kid says, "What do you want, Dad? What do you want for Christmas?" "Oh, nothing. I can't know because if you bring me a toy, if you bring me a bicycle, I'm going to fall from it. If you bring me a toy, it's going to break." etc. And the other kid says, "What do you want?" "I want a pony. I want a pony. I want a pony, Dad." Yes, I know Santa's going to give me a pony this year because that. So the one kid, so the next Christmas around comes, and the father puts underneath the tree for the one kid the bicycle and the toys and everything else, and sure as hell, "Oh, I don't know how to put it together. What's going to happen? They're going to steal it, etc." And for the other kid, he put horse manure, right? And when the other kid opens the bag of horse manure, he says, yes. He says, "What the hell are you so happy about? This is horse shit." He says, "Wherever there's horse shit, there's a pony behind it." So, so it's that attitude. And I use this example as an extreme of how you could actually control it, right? How you actually, and I live my life thinking that there's a pony behind every door. And it's my choice to do that. So if you think about positive attitude, if you think about how it can change your entire way of life, the effect is also very, very contagious. My second principle is, and there's no order to this, is keep your word. I know that sounds simple, but again, it's a way of life. I don't mean keep your word because you gave your word in a contract and you're now legally bound to do it, right? Keep your word means become dependable. Become dependable to your friends. Become dependable to your family. Become dependable to your partners. If you say something, mean it. If you're going to be on time, if you're going to say to somebody, "I'm going to be there at 7, be there at 7. Because it's a way of life again. If you keeping your word is becoming dependable to the people around you, and therefore you create a reputation where you become dependable as you grow up. As you grow up, then this is throughout life. You have friends that you depend on. You say, if Joe or if Mary say this, they're going to do it. Be one of those people, because that is going to pay back for you enormously. As you grow up and as you actually continue to make contacts, people are going to bring you opportunities versus you than somebody else, because they know they can depend on you. And who are they going to bring it to you when their own behind is on the line, right? So keeping your word is something very important. I have an example of this, which is rather funny. And I think God works in very mysterious ways, Monsignor. I really am convinced of that. Basically, is that I'm not a cat person. I don't like cats. Cats, I don't like the arrogance of cats. Cats, you leave them a message, they'll call you back whenever they want. I like the dog. They come in, but it doesn't give, they saw you 5 minutes later. So anyway, so just keep this in mind as I tell you the story about keeping your word. So there was a time in my life when Tony was talking about that I was in the development business that I actually had a big fight in my hands in Coconut Grove. And Katie, you may remember. But anyways, it was in the late 80s, and Commissioner Sorensen has been in many of these battles before. But basically, so at that point, the entire neighborhood of Coconut Grove I was enemy number one. And I was in this big, big battle with them. I'll give you an example. Is one time, and if you've heard of the Mango Strut Parade, Lisette and both of my kids were looking at the Mango Strut Parade, and we're fun Coconut Grove, and there was a mock New Orleans funeral coming down. Oh, look how cute! And the coffin had my name on it. This is a true story. I can't tell you how many Sundays, teas I had to go, and I was their nemesis, right? So we had assembled a lot of property directly across the street from Monty's. We owned Monty's. We had assembled it, and we cleared their property. We were going to build today, what for a long time was the Terremark Center. Today is a Spanish Broadcasting Assistance building, right? So we were going to build it. We had assembled all this property. We were ready to demolish the buildings. Loan in place, zoning still being fought really hard. Everything depended on the zoning. The battle with the neighbors, etc., etc., etc. And I got a call one night from a reporter, from a Miami Herald reporter. The Herald had not taken a position on this. And basically the neighbors saw me as, even though I tried, believe me, I had so many teas on a Sunday afternoon telling them I'm not a bad person, I really care about the neighborhood, but they don't listen. When the militants are going in the neighborhood, there's no way to turn it back. So anyways, so I get a reporter calling me, and he says, Mr. Medina says, yeah, we're ready. I understand you're getting ready to demolish the buildings. And I said, yes. He says, what are you going to do about the cats? And I said, and I got it, right? And I said, the cats. Well, we're rescuing the cats. We're going to be rescuing them. This is before we demolish them. You sure you're going to rescue the cats? Because, there's colonies and there's blah, 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 blah. The bulldozers were all filled up, ready to go, right? So anyway, so I said, of course, I would never dream of tearing this down, burying the cat. So I went out, and who rescues cat? Anyways, we hired a cat lady. We ended up rescuing 150 plus cats. We ended up having on the project next door that eventually became Grove Hill, we had 5 apartments full of cats. We ended up neutering the males, paying the females, having an adoption program for the kittens. I ended up making contributions to cat, to a territory. I gave her my word that I was going to do that. I didn't have to do it. I gave her my word. It probably cost us, I can't tell you how much money it cost us, per cat. So it's a double lesson. So what happened? You know what she did? She wrote this incredible article. And that turned the neighborhood. Because in Coconut Grove, 99.9% of the residents are cat lovers. So therefore, it happened. And I gave her my word. You know that? And this is many, many examples where my word is cost me money, and you think it's cost you money, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like at the end of the day, it really comes back and pays big time, right? Number 3 is, and again, there's no order about this, and this might sound like a silly one, but I like to keep fit. Externally and internally. In other words, keeping fit for me is an important part of life as eating, doing anything else. Externally, helps you tremendously. Mentally, it helps you, your attitude, it helps you with a positive attitude, because I see it. I see it, when I haven't exercised for 2 or 3 days and I've eaten too many steaks and too many bottles of wine, I don't feel the same, right? So basically, it's that external exercise is something that for me is a must, right? At the same time, also internally. One of the things that I really and truly have a pet peeve about, and particularly you young guys and girls today, is you're being continuously multitasking. I see you guys right here. You're not paying attention. Up the back there, are you paying attention? No, you're not. You're checking your Facebook page. You're IMing your girlfriend, Why? What is so important right now? I don't mean to embarrass you, but what is so important right now that couldn't wait another 20 minutes? You're either here because you're interested in the lesson, or you're not here. So the point being is, and I'm trying to, every time I do this, you just got unlucky today because typically there's a lot more, right? Today, this multitasking gives you no time for inner introspect. You don't have to be hooked up to your PDA constantly. You don't have to check Facebook every 10 seconds, and you don't have to be IMing everybody and having, all this stuff. Relax inside. Think about it. Waste time. It's really amazing how productive doing nothing is. But I mean really nothing. I don't mean having, the example. So this internal, in my entire fitness, and I'm a big admirer of the Chinese and the Buddhists. I'm a black belt in Kung Fu. I'm a black belt in Tai Chi. And I actually love the yin and the yang of the external and the internal, right? So in play tennis, I run, but I also leave time for myself. That doesn't mean that you have to meditate. Meditating is difficult. I like it, but you don't have to. People say it's very hard. I can't meditate. You could be meditating sitting under a tree. You could be meditating looking at the birds. So keeping fit externally and internally is a very integral part of you being able to succeed. And I think, by the way, I've studied and I've read the bios of most of the successful people that I've had time to. That's a lot of them. And I think you'll find that a lot of these principles are really applied to a lot of these people. You'll find an inner peace in a lot of these people that actually, as hyper as they may be, once you get to know them, it's that inner peace that keeping your body and your internal at a balanced stage, it's a tremendous asset for you. So that's my third one. My fourth one is keep informed. I read everything. I'm a voracious listener, reader. I read the back of the cereal box every morning, and I've read it 42,000 times. So I read everything. I don't mean, and I mean that. Stuff, I don't know, I love Jeopardy, because I have all this useless information in my head. I don't even know what to do with it, right? And you know what? It's useless, but it's not. You want to be an interesting person. You don't want to be the best accountant or the best economist. You don't want to be the best, engineer. You want to be somebody that people want to be with, right? And then when people want to be with you, and by the way, I'm not saying this to promote myself. I'm telling you the things that have actually worked, right? So you want to be a person that is interesting. When the conversation turns to Syria or to Muslims or to whatever is happening in art world or whatever is happening, you don't have to be an expert, but you have to be you want to be a person that is interesting. You only do that if you really care and you're interested in it, right? I have a story about this, which is a few years ago. Lou Tamaris, the former dean of the School of Engineering at the University of Miami, asked me to give the commencement address to the engineering school. Wow, man, that was an honor for me. It really was. What am I going to be doing? So I was dressed up with my regalia, and he introduces me, and I will go up there, and there was all these young engineers in the stadium of the University of Miami. Their graduation day, and they're going to listen to my inspirational speech, as a commencement, etc. And I start out by saying, I'm sorry, you already made a mistake. You decided to become engineers. I can't help you.
I agree.
They didn't know how to react, right? What is he talking about? My whole point, and I spent the whole commencement address, is get outside of that box. If you really stay in that engineering box, within those, you're doing yourself a tremendous disservice. I hired and employed in Terremark hundreds of engineers. And I can tell you that the engineers that are really successful are the ones that are not totally in that little square, right? That all their whole life is, they're so smart, but they can't even tie their shoes because they're so smart. Now, we had a lot of those as well, because you just need to throw them in there, lock the door on the outside, throw them some food every now and then and come back, because, you need them as well. But I don't consider that an engineer, right? I don't consider that an entrepreneur. And today we're talking about entrepreneurs. It's very, very difficult. I spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley. I was just there this week. I spent a lot of time there, and I tell you, successful engineers get outside of that box. Now, I spent the whole commencement address talking to them about it, and then later on, as a matter of fact, since then I've run into a few of them that have actually is resonated with them. So keep informed. Use the opportunity. Use the the opportunity to really learn a lot more than what your subject matter is today. The fifth one is one that might sound silly, but it's keep a sense of humor. I think most successful people that I know, most entrepreneurs, have a great sense of humor. They really do. They're self-deprecating. They love to laugh at themselves. They love to make jokes. That doesn't mean you're a clown, because in all of these principles, there's a subtle difference, right? You become a clown, people lose respect for you. But keep a sense of humor. It is very, very, think about it again in the positive attitude and the people you want to hang out with. Don't you like to hang out with your friends that are funny? That actually have a great sense of humor and have a quick quip whenever you say something. It's great. And I think it helps, again, because at the end of the day, what you're promoting is your trademark. As an entrepreneur, it's your trademark. That's what you're promoting. So it helps your trademark. It helps the all around say, yeah, she's funny. I want to hang out with her. I want to hang out with him. He's a funny guy. And one of the stories that I say about this is we built a major data center campus in a little town called Culpeper, Virginia. I never even heard about it. As a matter of fact, the first time I heard about Culpeper, the only Culpeper I ever heard of was Dante Culpeper. Remember the quarterback for the Dolphins that used to train right here? It wasn't all that good anyways. But anyways, Culpeper, Virginia. Culpeper, Virginia, we built this major data center in our federal business, for our federal business. In Culpeper is about 60 miles west of the monument, Washington Monument. You will be very surprised how different Northern Virginia is the further west you go. There's a lot more with the Appalachian Mountains and the hillbillies and rednecks than there is with the silicon and with the techie aspect that you all think of Northern Virginia. So we built this. We bought this property. It was a vineyard, 30-acre vineyards. Now vineyard, Virginia. I still have 2 bottles of the wine. If I ever want to poison myself, I think I'll drink it. But in the meantime, I will sit there till I can tell the story better. So anyways, we buy this vineyard. It was humbling when we actually got the deed being transferred to us. The family had owned the property since the mid-1700s. It was amazing in Miami, right? So I'm awed by all this stuff. And so Culpeper has incredible heritage, incredible lineage, and of course here comes today. And it was the Culpeper Gazette, the Culpeper Star. We were front page news for months, and nobody had ever met me. So basically, and they had all these stories and, etc. And it comes day for me to meet the town. And Governor Tim Kaine can tell you the story. He was there that same day welcoming us. Because, by the way, we ended up spending almost $500 million in Culpeper, Virginia. So today I could run for mayor of Culpeper. No problem. But anyways, but going back to this day and sense of humor. So I'm there. We were actually at a college, junior college right next to our property. It was sold out. They had to put speakers on the outside. People came from miles all around, to see who the hell was this Manuel Medina from Miami, right? So basically, so we go there, and the mayor of Culpeper was very gracious, and they were extremely apprehensive. Here I am, this guy, foreign name, coming from Miami, big company, etc. What is he doing in our little town, right? You would be apprehensive, right? And so I go there, and I'm in there were, hundreds, 500-600 people jammed in there, and Governor Kaine introduces me, and, it's, again, very little, everybody's kind of like saying, so I get up to the podium, and I begin speaking. Welcome, thank you, Governor Kaine, thank you, Mayor, it's a great honor for me to be here. Then I stop. And I say, I'm already disappointed in Culpeper. The first thing I asked you, Governor, is that I wanted a microphone without an accent, okay? You couldn't even do that for me, right? So, anyways, this is exactly what happened. For us, this is a typical thing. For them, they cracked up. They actually cracked up. It totally broke the ice. They became really, and they became friends, and, so that sense of humor, being able to have enough confidence in yourself to not have to be defensive about your shortcomings. On the contrary, be actually offensive about your shortcomings. Be able to use it, right, to the best of your ability and make fun of it. Again, that doesn't mean that you become a clown. So that's one of my real important ones, to keep a sense of humor. As we move on, one that is actually extremely important, is keep humble. Keep a sense of humility. Again, successful people that are really successful and important and powerful, they're the most humble people I've ever met. And when I talk about humility, I don't mean you have to be meek. Humility is portrayed on how you treat people around you. How do you treat people below you, right? How do you treat your gardener and and the guys and girls who are actually who don't have the same education that you have, but in fact, instead of dismissing them, you're trying to be attentive. And so the humility, we as a human race are extremely arrogant. It's our nature. We're arrogant, right? I mean, if you think about the arrogance of humans and how we think we control the whole world until nature comes and smacks you in the back of the head. Personally, every time that I've actually began to believe a little bit my own propaganda, I'm telling you, somebody comes with a 2x4 and goes, "Wow, here you go, kiddo. You're not that smart after all, are you?" Because it happens without you controlling it. So humility and the way it was one particular case, and I won't use any names, but I had a banker I was beginning to think about doing business with, and he came to our house, and we had he was a very, very funny guy, etc. Then Lisette and I went to his house, and all of a sudden he began screaming at the maids in front of me. And I said, "You know what? I don't care what this guy's offering. I'm not buying, right?" And and then he came back and was very gracious with me. And I said, I made excuses. I didn't do a deal. He ended up spending about 10 years in jail, and basically the whole thing. The point that I'm making is it's extremely important. The most powerful people that I know are the most humble people that I know, and they will actually. I have absolutely no problem driving for a driver, etc. And I think if you think about that in the context of your life, again, it goes back to your brand, right? If you're so sure of yourself and you're so confident in yourself, that you don't have to tell people how important you are. Bullies, they are the most insecure, etc. They got to keep telling you how tough you are. My Kung Fu master is 5 feet tall, and I'm telling you, this guy is the most incredibly lethal individual that I've ever met in my life. You could go and slap him and he would ask you for forgiveness. This guy he exemplifies humility. Same thing with money. When you talk about which is money, the people that have real money and people, they don't have to be floundering from. That doesn't mean that you cannot do and you cannot like good things, but it does mean that don't go out and tell the world how important you are, because the world is going to come back and you're going to be very, very sorry that you actually are trying to tell it otherwise, right? So, and then my last one before I open it for questions to you, Tony told me I had to keep it at 21 minutes, and I'm at 23 minutes now. I'm sorry. That's the problem with me. I just talk. Anyways, the last one is really also, and these are all cliches. You might think, yeah, I've heard it. Keep trying. Now, let's talk a little bit about trying, right? Let's talk about what do you mean by trying. People say, I really want to be an entrepreneur. Do you really? Do you want to give up? Your schedule, your time? Do you want to really persevere? And do you really want to be 24/7? Do you have that belief in what you're doing? And do you really want to try to the point? There's nothing worse than rejection. People don't take rejection very easily. This is why the most successful salesperson, once you finish that prospective sale and they rejected it, you go on to the next one and you forget about the other one, right? Because if you this is why relationships, etc. We don't do well with rejections as a human race. You have to teach yourself that it doesn't matter, because once you're not rejected, then it makes it worth it. But it's very difficult to learn that. So if you think about trying, is continue to try and try and try and put this. A professor of mine told me one day, and this was a long time ago, and if you think about it, he says the problem with trying to succeed and continue to try and try and try is if you think about you're climbing a ladder, and the ladder, you don't know if it has 100 steps or 100 million steps. You just don't know. You just keep climbing. Now, it could be that you stopped and it was the next step, right? But you don't know that. And then it could be. So how do you actually continue trying to the point that you don't become silly? The only way you do it is because you believe so much in what you're doing that you're not going to take no for an answer. This is probably the number one thing that has actually helped me the most, is that I've never, first of all, I don't like rejection, but I accept it. In other words, I don't mind you telling me no. And that's, by the way, I say no very easily. If you are proposing something to me I say no, because that's basic. I'd rather say no than not string you along. And I like that. I learned that I'd rather have somebody that comes in and says, no, Manny, I don't like what you're doing. And say, oh yeah, I'll come back next Friday. And then next Friday I call the secretary, no, he's late, or blah, blah, blah. No. So the rejection and they keep trying, if you think about, and this kind of ties in a little bit to the positive attitude and bad things happening, and then to trying. When the Nap of the Americas, when we completed the Nap of the Americas, in August of 2001. In that year, the internet bubble had burst. A lot of you were very, very young then, but a lot of you remember that. Internet bubble had burst. The telecommunications industry had imploded, and Wall Street was out to lunch. It was one of the tech bubble bursts. If you've studied, I'm sure, under Tony's leadership. And we were just completing this project, and on top of that, 30 days later, September 11th. Now, after getting over the shock of September 11th, I was actually at the Nap of the Americas. The next thing that happened was, oh my God, not all the funding was in place. We actually had to make some very fundamental decisions. This is when, the last project that I saw was the Four Seasons. I sold it, and you guys played Texas Hold'em? You know what going all in is? I went all in, right? And I went all in, something bad, and I said, I believe so much in what I'm doing that I'm going to go all in. Because it was either save that or let it go. So I went all in. Here's what happens. Two things happen. I will continue to try to get the funding. I wouldn't quit. Me and my CFO, we have a number of, it would take forever to tell you a number of the stories, some of them funny, of all the rejections that we got in the funding. Because in Miami, nobody will pay attention to me. The traditional people, Manny's gone berserk. What the hell is a nap? And what is this internet thing? And what is this, all this stuff? And nobody. Luckily, through a previous life, I had people that I made a lot of money for that just to get rid of me would actually say, okay, here's the money, leave me alone, right? So again, we wouldn't take no for an answer. The double lesson on this is that September 11th ended up to being the one thing that saved the project because it brought the government in. The government would have never been it was never part of our business plan. And the reason why the government came in, because as tragic as those planes hitting those towers were, if they would have hit up the street at a place called 60 Hudson. Now, luckily, the terrorists were not smart enough at the time to know this. But Rudy knows what I'm talking about, right, Rudy? So basically, if those planes would have hit the way that the government communicates, would have been chaos because their network equipment was in a mountain that not even a nuclear bomb could get to it, but the traffic was being exchanged through a very vulnerable exchange. This was all new, remember that. So the government came to us and said, by that point, we already had 35 carriers. We want to put a note in here. That actually, so first lesson, something was going to be really bad, ended up being good. And then keep trying. So trying. We will give a pitch. At those times, it wasn't like today. So you didn't have the little, iPad and, et cetera. You had a big old laptop and you had a big projector, and we will be going around, anybody spending our time in New York, whatever. And we will pitch a cab driver from LaGuardia to the Manhattan, and will let us, just, yes, Nap of the Americas airport, blah, blah, blah. So, but we would never quit. And I was sitting one day in the bar where I live. Typical place for you to find. But I was sitting on a Saturday afternoon after playing tennis, having a beer. And I'm sitting at the bar, and again, this guy's sitting next to me, and it's a friendly neighborhood. So we're talking, and what do you do? And I tell him right away. The guy, if he's here, he's got to have money. So let me pitch him. So So the guy says, and I tell him about the Nap, and the guy says, and where is this Nap thing? He says, no, it's downtown Miami. I said, can I see it? And I said, of course, because he had already told me he was an investment banker. Make a long story short. 30 days later, we had $87 million in the bank. Yes, and that turned the whole company, 2004. Then all the institutional investors kept following, and then Credit Suisse found us, et cetera. And then how does the CEO and the CFO of Verizon Business authorize a wire transfer a few months ago for $2 billion? It's because of, if you take apart the story, and I know it's a little bit discombobulated on purpose, but if you take apart the story, any one of these pieces that I'm telling you now would have made it impossible for the wire transfer to have been originated. Because if I would have quit, if I would have done any of the things, if I would have violated my principles, that would have never happened. And this has happened to me my entire life. As I sit here in front of you today, it's never failed me. So this hard part of trying, because people say, I tried. Oh, no, I emailed my resume. If you email me my resume, first of all, it's going to be called in spam. Worse than spam is Terry, my assistant who's been with me for 28 years. You're never going to see it, right? Now, so basically, how much do you really want to be? No, not right now, but at the time in Terremark, how much do you really want to be there? I had people, and I admire that. Show up in the lobby. No, HR. Okay, I'll see HR, and the next day, but I want to see. So, how much do you really want it? And that thing, only you can answer yourself that. I mean, I can't tell it, but I'll tell you something. Do not make excuses later on for yourself. Tell yourself later on. Be truthful to yourself. I didn't get it. Did you really try every possible way and alternative for you to be able to get what you wanted at that given moment, whether it was a loan or so forth and so on. So my last one is keep trying, right? And if you really believe in it, I give you my promise, and you can come back and collect it, that if you follow all these principles and do everything that I did, you're also going to get a $2 billion wire transfer in a few years.